When the sun's out, the tits are out.
Eavesdroppin.
Michelle, hello. How are you?
Oh, I'm just bloody great. All good.
All good, as they say in Australia, which is where you are right now, aren't you? On a flying mission.
I am in a land down under. I love it. Love it here.
And are you glowing or are you chundering? We're women glow and men chunder.
Do you know what? What a line. It's absolutely genius.
Still sent that record to number 1. But listen, Michelle, before we go any further, I feel like we need to introduce ourselves before we get carried away, as we always do. I'm Geordie.
And I'm Michelle. And you are listening to Eavesdroppin, the podcast.
Which makes you an eavesdropper. Yes, you have a label. You have a name. You can call yourself something. That feels good, doesn't it? Being classified as an eavesdropper. Well, don't worry, because we like it.
We do. And we love it when you eavesdrop on us. And we love it when you write in and give us all your thoughts, all your ideas.
All your 5-star reviews.
Yes.
Ideas for stories. Loving it.
Don't forget that.
Actually, we had some people writing in.
Okay.
I had Charlene, who had listened to, because we had a collaboration 2 episodes ago with an Australian podcast. There are other podcasts, The Midlifers, which is Australian nostalgia. And we got together with them and they appeared on our podcast while I told them about Charles Manson. And we did a hall pass and we did talking about who did it better. Was it Brad Pitt in Seven or was it Brad Pitt in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? And it was a fun time, wasn't it, Michelle? We got to find out all the men that you fancy. Ricky Gervais. Who was the other one? James Gandolfini.
Yes, he was part of my celebrity spit roast.
Ugh.
I loved everyone else's, but I felt that mine were
lacking.
They just weren't as exciting, you know.
Aim high, Michelle.
Mine fell flat with everybody. I was a little bit too honest that I, liked a big bad boy mafia dom. That's what I liked.
Dom.
And Don.
Oh, okay.
A Don.
I thought we were going down the BDSM route for a minute there. But no, what Charlene had said was because she's not from Australia, so she's not fully aware of Countdown being the Australian version of Top of the Pops, which I mentioned. Because I did say that's where you got to see all the pop stars to fancy. And she thought I was saying Countdown in the UK, which was a daytime TV game show featuring Carol Vorderman as the maths genius and hosted by Richard Whiteley, a.k.a. Thrice Nightly Whiteley, who she thought was going to be my
hall pass.
My hall pass. But actually, Michelle, if you were to see Richard Whiteley, you might actually add him to yours. He sounds like he's right up your Strasse.
Well, I don't know. Would he laugh me into bed like the other boys? I honestly, Pavement, I felt like that felt a bit flat as well. People
no one
didn't
knew who
know.
Pavement were. Yeah.
And look, it was a bit obscure, but that was my life. I was an indie girl in the 90s, and he honestly was my heartthrob. Speaking though,
mine were all fairly obscure as well. Speaking of heartthrobs, you were going to say?
I was at Jen's house. And I was going to find an electrical cable and there was a tin. And it was a tin from my childhood. And inside it were all her sewing bits and bobs and buttons. And I picked up this tin and I was like, oh my God, look at this.
Nostalgia hit.
Total nostalgia hit. And then I was like, what's that scratched into the side? All these horrible things. I'd written this person's name. It said they were a mole.
So-and-so is a bitch and a mole. She got syphilits and fucks boys from Crombie. Do you remember I saw that on a park bench in Canberra that I met the girl?
Syphilits. It had her name and I'm not going to say it because you never know who's listening.
You still know her?
And I was mortified. And then scratched into it, it had Michelle for AB.
Who's AB?
Andrew Bowell. That was his name.
Bowell?
That was Bowell. That was his actual name.
Oh.
Andrew Bowell.
Imagine you could have been Mrs. Michelle Bowell.
Mrs. Bowell.
Sorry.
Oh, my God.
I wasn't laugh, but gosh.
It had MM4AB, and I thought, bloody hell, Andrew Bowell. And it had, well, I'm not going to say the year. That'll give me away, but it was quite shocking that I had scratched it into this tin.
You had a crush and you put it on the tin.
Wasn't even my hall pass. It was a crush. An actual crush.
Aww.
But all of those obscure lads that I mentioned on the Hall Pass episode, they really did occupy a little place in my heart at one time or another.
Okay.
Yeah. Would I shag them now? Probably not. Maybe Ricky
Probably not.
Gervais. I don't
Really?
know. No, cup of tea.
Cup of tea every time. I've got a little shout out to send to Ireland. Yes, there are listeners in Ireland, or a listener, and her name's Kira. Yes, she is my son's auntie. But I just want to say, Jakers, Kira, welcome to the podcast. She's been listening for ages and I haven't given her a single shout out, but here you go, Kira. Shout out. Shout out.
You're getting a shout out. Lovely.
What's lovely? Why did you say that?
I was trying to be Irish.
That's not...
Wow. Now, Geordie, as you know, I'm in Australia. There's been a few hot topics hitting the headlines here. The first one's all about recipe stealing.
What?
Yeah, there's these two Aussie content creators. They're cooks. One of them has a actual bakery and the other one is, I think, an online content cook. All sorts of accusations of plagiarism and recipe stealing.
Wow.
It got me thinking, like, can you actually claim a recipe is yours? I mean, unless you really invented something like pavlova, can you?
Yeah.
But that's also meringue. Like, who invented meringue? Isn't pavlova just a big meringue? Like,
did you IP that? You know, is that your intellectual property? Can no one else make a meringue like Colonel Sanders and his 52 spices?
Secret herbs and spices. Yeah, so there's this big drama going on and it's big business. I mean, this woman, Brookie Bakes is the name of her cookbook. I'm giving her a bloody shout out. I mean, I don't want you to go and buy it because she might have been ripping off recipes.
Yes.
Allegedly. But yes, apparently she knocked off a few recipes from this other lady, Nagi, and it's all kicking off in the media. No wonder, because her book has already sold $4 million worth of copies.
Wow.
It's big fucking business. So I get why people are pissed off and up in arms. So
yeah, but it is tricky territory though, Michelle. I understand what you mean, because like there are only so many chia puddings recipes you can put in a recipe book, and who do you say, oh, I got this from Nigella or whoever? People do give shout outs. Nigella will often say, this is from so-and-so who's given me permission to use this recipe, which I love. Every time I go to River Cafe, I always have this and blah, 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 that kind of thing, you know?
And I think that's only fair. On this podcast, we often reference where we've got our ideas from or our research. It's definitely, we put links on the Patreon for anyone. So we don't come up with all these ideas out of nowhere. We're just gathering and then putting our little twist on things.
We're foraging for ideas and then we just represent them.
Well, speaking of foraging.
Yes.
That is the next big media blow-up story here in Australia at the moment.
Right.
And Geordie, you actually covered it. This is one of those stories that's just running and running, because I think it must have been a year or so ago, you talked about Erin Patterson.
Yes, the lady who put the poisoned mushrooms in her family's dinner and killed a bunch of people. Allegedly. Well, that's finally going to trial. And it's not looking good for her because she lied about so many things. It's all been coming to the surface right now. She lied about having cancer. She lied about this dehydrator that she said wasn't hers, but they forensically looked at it and found her fingerprints all over it with dehydrated death cap mushroom residue inside it. Didn't she say to her family that she had cancer and she wanted to discuss it with them about how to break it to the children, which meant that the children could not be at the dinner, which is a little bit sus in itself, and she had a different coloured plate to everybody else?
All of this stuff. Anyway, she's pleading not guilty. And I just don't think it's looking good for her. But watch this space because it's shocking. It's really shocking. And
well, you can give us updates, Michelle.
Well, I bloody will, but I won't be in Australia for too much longer. But, you know, it's an international story. So, yes, definitely.
Michelle, have you got any things on television that you're watching at the moment?
Well, I've been hanging out with Jen, so I've been watching a whole new raft of things that I never normally would watch. Well, no, Farmer Wants a Wife.
You watched that last time you were there.
I did. Jen's a big fan. Also, Mum loves a renovation show.
Oh, who doesn't?
And buying homes. So we've been watching Selling Homes Australia, which is where there's a house that just will not sell. And they come in and they do the renovation and then it sells for a mozza.
It is utter shit, though, isn't it, these things? I was flicking around on the TV last night trying to find something to watch, and I came across a very similar program about the worst house in the street, UK, I guess that was. So they had to try and sell this house, or they bought a house without looking at it properly, and it was absolute shit tip. And these ladies and gentlemen were coming in and showing them how to paint cupboard doors and whatnot. Very boring. And then I noticed there's a new dating show, which I watched about 2 seconds of before I gave up in horror. It's Lucinda Light. Tea, coffee, coconut water. You know, the Australian lady from last year's
But
Maths.
we love her.
We do love her. It's her and Vicky Patterson from, I think it's Geordie Shores. They are hosting something called the Honesty Box, where they're all in some island in bikinis and they have to tell the truth. God. I don't know. It was just too much for me. I couldn't bear it. But I have been watching on Apple The Studio with Seth Rogen, Catherine O'Hara. It's really good. It's a little bit frustrating in a kind of Frank Spencer, Some Mothers Do Have 'Em kind of way, where everything goes wrong. But it's a great show about Hollywood and movies and all those sorts of things. It reminded me of our conversation about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood that we had with the Midlifer girls a couple of weeks ago.
Well, thanks for those telerecs. I've been watching quite a bit of Ghost Hunters.
Oh,
that's
research.
Well, that's a show that my sister and her partner absolutely love. Can't get enough of it. And it's where they go in with all of these devices to record movement and sound. It does get a bit creepy. So that's one to watch if you're up for it. And I did watch a season finale of Real Housewives of Sydney.
Oh,
and it was an absolute fucking shit show. And I didn't know who anyone was.
Don't tell me, because I'm watching it right now.
How are you? Jen made me watch it. It was a shit show.
It's appalling.
Really terrible.
It is appalling.
Really
but I can't get enough. When my brain needs to switch off, I will immediately reach for that. Or Below Deck Australia. I've been watching that as well.
Never seen it.
It's people on boats and they're all shagging each other and they're all getting upset, and the boss dog the captain is kicking them off left, right and centre. It's amazing.
Oh,
it's a real waste of life, though.
Yeah, of course.
I wouldn't recommend it.
All of that stuff is.
Get outside.
Get outside. Into the sunshine.
Live your life. Yeah.
Telerex for sure. Telerex, one more. I'm watching telly. You're watching telly. We're watching telly on the telly.
It's the television.
Well, if any of our wonderful eavesdroppers have any telerecs, do write in. We love it.
Please do. The sun's coming out here in the UK, though, so people are busy. They're out there having picnics and all sorts, you see.
Getting their tits out. That's what happens.
Getting their tits
when the
out.
sun's out, the tits are out. Really?
I think it's sun's out, guns out, isn't it? Not tits out.
Well, I see a lot of tits in the UK, but there's a little scrap of sun.
Yeah.
Like, oh, yes, I do. There's a lot of boobies.
Titties out.
Yep, it's a titty show. What can I say?
Well, this week, Michelle, we're not talking about titties or Liam Neeson and his enormous penis. We are this week talking about magic, Michelle. Because why? Because we had a flick through the Chambers Dictionary of the Unexplained. Shout out Beacon Twins, particularly. Jane Beacon, thank you so much. Right in the centre of the book, it's magic. Magic circle, magic circles, magic with a K, magic. Magic, magic, magic. It's a kind of magic.
It's a kind of magic.
There's a new film out at the moment from the Now You See Me franchise. Have you seen any of those films? They look ridiculous. Isla Fisher, Morgan Freeman.
No idea what you're even talking about.
Well, me either. But they've got this new film out. It's the third in the franchise. It's about a group of magicians called the Four Horsemen. They use their magical tricks to stage a series of elaborate thefts. And the marketing team had this huge billboard in New York City, in Times Square, that offered fans who called the number, secret number, $119. I don't know why that's the number, 119, but it was. And a bunch of people managed to win $119. Well done. Okay. That got some interest in the film, I suppose. Going back to magic. Under the magician's entry in the Chambers Dictionary of the Unexplained, it says that in every culture and age, the magician has been a powerful symbol of humanity's desire to influence its surroundings and take control over its life. Sometimes respected, other times feared and vilified, magicians appear at every stage in human history and legend.
Okay.
If you think about it, you've got Merlin, haven't you, who's not real, and you've got I can't think of any more, but yes, there's lots. Dumbledore, who's also not real. Like I said before, magic with a K, that's different. That's what people like Aleister Crowley and the other occultists would practice. But there is something called the magic circle, not a magic circle, which is where some occultists would practice, or witches might practice within one to protect them, or maybe it makes it more powerful. I'm not sure, I didn't read that entry. But it's a kind of governing body for magicians, the magic circle.
I have heard about this, actually.
You have?
Yeah, only a little bit. There was a story recently about a lady.
Well, that's what I'm going to tell you about.
Oh, wonderful.
It has been men only since its inception in 1905 until 1991. So well done, Magic Circle. But this was unfortunately a bit of a case of bad timing for Sophie Lloyd, who'd studied at London School of Mime in the late 80s. And around that time, she met a magician called Jenny Winstanley, who was frustrated that women weren't allowed into the Magic Circle, because it benefits members with things like prestige and recognition. It provides insight into the world's magic society and other magicians. It gets you a leg up, basically. It's a good thing to be a member of. There's resources like a dedicated library, there's exclusive events, lectures, a monthly magazine, online platforms, blah, blah, blah. It's very handy.
I guess it's like being part of any other kind of
registered body for your
industry. It just gives you some credibility in your industry that you're an accredited magician.
Exactly. And it offers networking opportunities with other magicians, chance to learn and develop your craft. So it's worth the membership fee in my mind, I suppose. And the motto is a Latin phrase that means not apt to disclose secrets, which basically means you can't reveal any secrets behind any tricks. So people like Penn and Teller will not be welcome because they've been known to demystify and disclose some of their tricks.
Right.
However, some other famous members are Dynamo. I've seen him perform his card tricks live and I could not believe my eyes.
Wow. Before
he was famous, he came to a party at a fashion company that I used to work for. I was a bit drunk, but I was thinking, where's the string? It was insane. He was making them dance.
What?
I know.
How do people do that? I mean, even though I know it's not magic, it's fucking clever.
It's something. Also, Stephen Fryer was a member, or is a member, and King Charles III was also a member. Interesting. I wonder what Fry did to get in. But Jenny Winstanley wanted in. But as a woman, it was impossible. So she devised a plan to dress her pal Sophie Lloyd up as a man, because Jenny was too well known to do this herself, and infiltrate the society. Sophie had actually worked as Jenny's assistant at gigs, but she had never actually performed magic herself, so she needed to go on a crash course pretty quick. And she was given a new identity, Raymond Lloyd, and she spent around 2 years studying the character of young Raymond Lloyd, disguising herself with a wig, bodysuit, gave herself a croaky voice. I guess it would have been slightly weird. She also had to wear gloves to hide her feminine hands. And Sophie was only 5'2", Michelle, so not much taller than you. So she made Raymond into a young-looking 18-year-old, complete with bum fluff on her chin.
This is a very elaborate disguise.
Isn't it?
2 years in the making. That's dedication.
More than that, Michelle. She would suffer some discomfort, but only mild with the disguise. And it was really hard for her to perform sleight of hand tricks because of the gloves always having to be on the hands.
Yes.
And not just that. In order to gain membership to the Magic Circle, you need to spend up to 1 year as an apprentice before applying for full membership. You also need to have known 2 current members for at least 1 year, and you must be at least 18 years old, which, in inverted commas, Raymond was. After the application has been processed, the candidate is invited to an interview with the examinations secretary at the London headquarters. Then there's a performance exam that's scheduled if the candidate is proven to be suitable, or you can write a thesis. The exam takes place in front of a panel of judges, and candidates must demonstrate their skills to members in a rehearsed act. So this is no flash in the pan, easy breezy deception for Sophie. A lot of dedication was required.
Yeah. I don't know how she's going to get away with it, because how is she going to know 2 members?
Well, they did it, but they felt that the scrutiny of the interview would be too risky, so they changed the game slightly by inviting the society to a 20-minute performance at a working man's club with an audience of 200.
Ooh.
And they preempted the performance with an announcement that Raymond had laryngitis. So it all sounds a bit hokey,
Yeah.
but it was enough to get her through. She got invited to join as Raymond. After all that, though, all that fuss.
All that trickery. And they shouldn't be surprised because this is a magic society. She's performing her own kind of trickery magic.
That's true, Michelle. But unfortunately, they changed their policy later the same year, or about a year and a half after she got in, to allow women in. So at the inaugural meeting to allow the women into the magic circle, Sophie revealed her true identity. But it didn't go down well, Mish, and the magic circle kicked her out for deliberate deception.
That seems very unfair. I mean, they just didn't like the fact that
They'd been tricked.
Yeah, she put one over them. And these are meant to be people who know magic and they didn't even realise.
Perhaps they didn't like being deceived.
Yes.
But then in 2024, last year, the club had a woman chair for the first time, a lady called Laura London, and she decided to put things right for Sophie. She wanted to apologise and readmit her, but they couldn't find Sophie anywhere. She disappeared sometime after 1997. So a public search was set up to locate Sophie, and eventually Sophie's sister alerted her and got her to make contact with the Magic Circle. So now Sophie has been recognised and presented with her membership officially as Sophie, which she's thrilled about because after being expelled from the Magic Circle, Sophie had been performing across the country as a magician for about 10 years, including performing some anti-bullying shows. And then she moved to Spain, where she took early retirement and has been involved in animal rescue work ever since.
Oh,
Jenny Winstanley, however, whose idea it was, she had gone on to run a pottery firm in Norfolk before she tragically died in a car crash in 2004. So when Sophie went to get her membership back, she said, "This is for Jenny, really. I just think Jenny would have loved it."
Oh, it's very sad. Very sad.
Isn't
but
it?
But also, these people didn't stay magicians for life.
Why can't you say it?
I don't know. Magicians for life. They kind of went on to do other things.
Yeah, I suppose it's not a job for life unless you're Paul Daniels or David Copperfield.
I guess it's a calling, or maybe it's just something you do until you get bored or you can't think of more tricks or someone saw through it and you lose your confidence. I don't know. It's a funny old business, I imagine.
Well, it is, yeah.
Well, it's nice that they put it right with Sophie.
I'm glad they put it right too. But, you know, what magicians do you know that are famous that had a whole life of magicianship? I feel like I said it wrong, but I didn't.
Do you consider...
Houdini?
Well, but do you consider Darren Brown a magician?
Not really, but I'd say he's very successful at what he does. He doesn't do like parlour tricks and disappearing games and stuff. It's all about the mind, isn't it?
It is, but in the sphere of magic and the outer corners, like, is he considered a modern day magician?
Possibly. I don't know.
I wonder.
But I can tell you what some of the top magicians that have ever lived are.
Now I've infected you.
I've got a list of 8 that came off a website somewhere. I've got Jean-Eugène Robert Houdin, who lived between 1805 to 1871. I've got Harry Houdini, Hugh Dini, I called him. Harry Houdini from 1874 to 1926.
He's so famous.
Isn't he?
Yeah.
He's even a verb, like he's a doing word now,
Yeah.
isn't he? He's done a Houdini.
He's done a Houdini.
Howard Thurston, David Copperfield, still going. John Neville Maskelyne, who was one of the most famous ones in this country, Great Britain, 1839 to 1917. Alexander Herman, also died in 1896. Di Vernon died in 1992. And Doug Henning, who died in 2000. But I wanted to say about movies, right? Because it got me thinking about all of those movies, Now You See Me, Now You Don't, which I'm not going to watch. There's The Illusionist. I'm not sure if I've seen that, but I have seen The Prestige from Christopher Nolan, which came out in 2006. It was nominated for 2 Oscars, stars Christian Bale and Hugh Jackman. And it's a really wild story. I started watching it last night before I flicked around to Lucinda Light because I got bored. But it's set during the late Victorian era. It's not a boring film, I will say that, but I have seen it before. And it centres around 2 stage magicians, Alfred Borden, played by Christian Bale, and Robert Angier, played by Hugh Jackman. They become embroiled in this fierce rivalry and start kind of competing against each other, and it gets more and more dangerous. And it's focused on Christian Bale's character's illusion known as the transported man, where he seems to disappear behind one door only to reappear almost instantaneously from another door on the opposite side of the stage. Mm. Now, Christian Bale's Borden attributes this trick to having an identical twin, but Jackman's Angier struggles to accept this simple explanation, and he gets obsessed with getting behind the truth of the trick. I'm not going to tell you any more because it will spoil it, but suffice to say, it's Christopher Nolan, so it's going to be a mind bender, and it is fascinating. So watch it if you haven't watched it already.
Good telly rec.
But I Googled whether or not it was based on any real magician rivalries and came up with a story from something called The Conversation, which link will be added
to the Patreon. So it's all set in the Victorian era, when magic was a gritty, cutthroat business. The original magicians were inventors, swindlers, rivals, and complete show-offs, so maybe Derren Brown would be at home. Many of the larger-than-life figures behind the tricks that we see in films like The Prestige or The Illusionist were just as fascinating on stage as they were on, it turns out, because there was this French magician who I mentioned before, number one in the list of greatest magicians ever lived. He was Jean-Eugène Robert Houdin, whose name inspired Houdini, because Houdini was a big fan. Right.
Before he turned on him, though, pin that. Robert Houdin, he was a watchmaker turned magician, and he used his mechanical know-how to invent intricate illusions, including a self-operating orange tree that sprouted real fruit and flowers. They copied that in The Illusionist, apparently. You can find videos of other people doing their own version. I'll have to send you a link to put up there because it's amazing. He also levitated his own son on stage and dabbled in second sight tricks, which are like mind reading. Mm-hmm. And in his memoirs, Robert Houdin wrote of being trained by a mysterious magician called Torini, who was a tragic, aristocratic conjurer. He had a dead kid and a grudge against another rival magician called Joseph Pinetti, known as the Professor of Natural Magic. He was quite flamboyant. So these are all these people that were famous in those days because magicians were the big shit back then. Torini's story was so compelling that it passed down through magic's history for decades, until it was revealed that Torini was totally made up by Robert Houdin. It was fake. Okay. Fake. He invented his own origin story to make himself seem more legendary. So is that how he got to the top of the list? I wonder.
Good marketing, if you ask me. No press is bad press.
Well, I think that a lot of these magicians are, PR is definitely the number one trick of all.
Yeah, definitely. And they're good at it. They've probably got the gift of the gab. They know how to project. They know what they're doing. Why not invent your own backstory? I mean, people do it all the time these days.
So Houdini had idolized Robert Houdin until he realized that he was a bit of a fraud and he had a problem with him after his widow refused to meet him.
Oh.
So I don't know why that was such a problem for Houdini. But in retaliation to Robert Houdin's widow not wanting to meet him, he wrote a revenge book called The Unmasking of Robert Houdin, where Houdini makes a lot of accusations of fakery about Robert Houdin. At this point, they didn't know, I think, that he'd made Torini up. That wasn't until the 60s.
Right.
And as I said before, Houdini died in 1926. He claimed that most of Robert Houdin's tricks that he took ownership of were in fact not his invention, and that Robert Houdin was not this great magician that most thought him to be. It reminds me of your recipe fight.
The rivalry here, the plagiarism. Who owns these tricks?
The IP, like who invented the bullet catch? Everyone does it.
Well, that's the thing. It's like you have the main trick and then you have variations. People just making it better. People making it their own. Is it plagiarism or is it just inspired by? I mean, I don't know. What's the deal? Again, lawyers, let us know.
Murky. Yeah, let us know. But even Houdini was a bit of a liar because these allegations that he said about Robert Houdin, they were also fabricated. So let me introduce now another magician, John Henry Anderson, to the story. He was a Scottish showman who was actually Robert Houdin's real rival, and he was known as the Great Wizard of the North. He was a master of gun tricks. Again, the old bullet catch trick was one that he did a lot, and he would restage Robert Houdin's routines the minute that Robert Houdin left town.
Right.
He'd just do them again. Despite being a copycat, Anderson also didn't like it when it was done to him.
No, of course not.
Sorry, mate.
If you can't, what is it? If you can't,
If you can't stand the heat, don't stay in the kitchen.
yeah, or it's
Do unto
doesn't
those. No. At one point, Anderson also threatened a magician called George Barnardo Eagle with a poster that read, "This time I'll pluck you clean."
Oof.
Then there's another one that I mentioned from the top 8 magicians ever lived, John Neville Maskelyne, a magician so protective of his illusions that he sued anyone who dared to copy him.
Interesting. But I will say, earlier you said that they're liars.
Yeah.
Something about magic and lying. But the
Yeah.
thing is that magic is lies.
It is.
They're all liars. And I feel their whole profession, their whole industry is based on lies. So how can they expect...
lies, subterfuge, trickery,
Yeah.
sneakiness.
So why are you expecting honesty from your colleagues when
Well,
basically
exactly.
everything you're doing is about tricking people and lying?
Well, if you watch The Prestige, you'll see in one of the first scenes that Borden sneaks backstage while Angier is doing a trick. And this reminds me of John Neville Maskelyne, the magician who I said would sue people if they copied him. He had a major beef with an American magician called Henry Keller, who allegedly stole a levitation trick off Maskelyne by sneaking backstage, or he planted a spy amongst Maskelyne's crew.
Right.
So the rivalry, it was rife,
Yeah.
but it never got to the scandalous climax of Christopher Nolan's film The Prestige, with its heavy dose of poetic license. It's quite fascinating. You've got to watch it. But it does nail the vibe, which is magic as obsession, deception, and dangerous ambition. Because as Christian Bale's Alfred Borden character says in the film, I called him Boredom. His name's actually Borden. He said, "The secret impresses no one. The trick you use it for is everything."
Yes, right. So it ain't what you do, it's the way
Way
that you do it. And that's what gets results. It's not the size of the wand, it's the magic it makes. You know, it's always what you do with it, right?
I kind of wish I'd spoken more about Houdini, you know, because he's a fascinating character. You know that he
Yeah.
could do a lot of his tricks just by maximizing out his muscles when he was being tied up and then retracting them again, so he slipped out. He also taught himself how to unpick locks with his toes. He was adept at like kissing his assistants and getting keys into his mouth. He'd swallow them, then he'd regurgitate them at will. He also used to get punched in the stomach and show that he wasn't being hurt at all, but then he died of what people thought was a ruptured appendix from all the punching in 1926.
But don't you think he, in some ways, is an early version of, all those guys eating light bulbs and doing all those crazy stunts?
Jackass.
Jackass. He's like an early Jackass. Like,
Well, Houdini is a bit more talented than the Jackass boys.
well, yes, they're a bit more like, "Ugh," but I think Houdini had a bit more finesse for
Yes.
sure. And he's legendary.
He was an
and holding his
escapologist.
breath. Yeah, I mean, all of that stuff is amazing. And obviously, you know, he's the subject of one of our lovely songs from Kate Bush, who we love. And there's always been a lot of folklore around his tricks, you know. And like you say, he's become a noun. Adjective?
Is that the right word? Yeah. You're the one with the English
I
degree.
don't know. Don't ask me. But yeah, he's in common vernacular. And I
Yes.
think coming back to the idea of magic, I think the psychology of it is very interesting because I think we want to believe. But I also think these guys, when it's good, it's so bloody good. You really do think, how the fuck did they do that card trick?
Yeah.
Where did that coin from behind the ear come from? It's so clever.
Yeah. And like you say, you know you're being tricked, but you still can't kind of get over it.
Yeah. Oh, well, really interesting. Tank ooh.
Eavesdroppin'.
So, Geordie, while I was looking at things, I was thinking about magical thinking. Not quite the same as magic, obviously. And while I was going down that rabbit hole, I came across this thing called holistorexia. Have you ever heard of it?
That sounds like a disorder of some kind.
Yeah, really. It's basically an unhealthy obsession with holistic wellness. And it drives people to go for all of these like bizarre fatty diets and wellness techniques rather than going to a doctor.
I think I know people who are suffering from that. I never even knew it existed.
Yeah, fucking me. Me. Honestly, I feel like I'm guilty of holistorexia because I am always looking for that magic fix that is kind of natural and holistic rather than taking a magic pill to fix things, which I still, having been brought up in a time when we were young, that like natural is everything. You know, you're always looking for that alternative remedy to heal you rather than going to a doctor. And so it was always kind of legit and amazing, but I think there is a place for that, but I do think you can take things too far. But once you go down this wellness route, it can be hard to decipher what's good for you and what's actually bringing you, you know, more stress and anxiety into your life. So I read an article, and I'll link to it on the Patreon. So I did read, and I know this sounds like I'm always reading the Daily Bloody Mail, but I read a Daily Mail article about holistorexia. It did talk about a woman called Susie Thatcher. She's 24, or she was at the time. This was a couple of years ago. She lives in the UK, and every morning she wakes up to her alarm clock noise, which is the squawking of exotic birds, because she believes that these sounds boost her energy levels.
Oh, that's not the sort of thing that would boost my energy levels. Do you remember when I was last in Australia, there was a really annoying bird that I wanted to shoot?
Like you did. You actually put a little...
I tried to record it.
Yes, and it was terrifying.
Oh, God.
So she does that. She wakes up to... And then she inhales sweet basil oil to reduce stress. She follows with 20 minutes...
I'm into all this so far, apart from the squawking.
Me too. Yeah. She then does 20 minutes of dhyana meditation. Don't know what that is. But apparently it's a Buddhist technique which uses hand poses to focus the mind. Then for brekkie, she has a warm bowl of amaranth porridge because
yuck.
Amaranth is, according to her beliefs, a grain that will dry out areas of dampness inside her body and boost her organ function.
It tastes nasty though. I've had it.
Well, I don't mind amaranth. We often have puffed amaranth on our vegetarian desserts at the restaurant, and it can be delicious when treated the right way, but I think amaranth porridge sounds pretty bloody disgusting.
Nice. Yeah.
No. She's on the amaranth. Then she has a glass of cold spiced tea, and then she takes a slow walk along the Cornish beach that is opposite her apartment.
Oh, that sounds nice.
But she counts to 10 between every pace, every step.
So that's really slow then.
Really slow, because that helps her relax.
Oh, God, that would stress me out.
I know. It's now 9 o'clock, and then she welcomes students to her flat for their first lesson in holistic health and healing, which in 2021, when the article was written, it said she'd been teaching for just over a year. 1 year. And she's already teaching people this stuff.
She's an expert.
I mean, she did, obviously, maybe she did a weekend course or something. I'm not trying to, slam her, but if you're only teaching for a year, I don't know. It just doesn't sound legit to me. She's doing all this stuff, and she instructs people on how to tackle physical and mental health problems without modern medicine. And she puts an emphasis on rebalancing your inner energy. This reminds me of two things. A friend recently told me when I said, I feel like I'm not sleeping so great at the moment. She says, well, you've got to make sure that the first thing you see when you wake up is natural sunlight. And the last thing you see at night is the sunset.
Oh.
How is that going to work?
It's very difficult here in the United Kingdom because it's quite often quite overcast.
Yes. And also, I don't want to go to bed at 4:30. I don't want to have the last thing my eyes see, something so dark in the winter.
What about a few episodes of Maths or your partner's face or something?
Bring that on. And then also, I don't know if you've heard of this, but it's a thing called human design.
Yeah, I have heard of that.
I hadn't. It's basically, they call it a modern map for understanding yourself. So it brings in all of these different things like astrology, the I Ching, the Kabbalah tree of life, the Hindu Brahmin chakra system, and quantum physics, and neutrinos.
Don't know what that is.
Well, neutrinos are these subatomic particles that fly through space, but also fly through your body. So it's this thing of...
Are we eating them?
Well, I don't know. But it's more that the way that they're talking about quantum physics is that it's the idea that we as humans are constantly influenced by these things because, you know, they're around us, but through us.
Up us, out us, around us.
Yeah, in you. And there are 4 energy types. You're meant to find your energy type and then that will tell you how to operate in the world.
Oh, God, more of those bloody... Well, are you a summer or an autumn? Or are you a pitta, vata, whatever?
Are you a manifestor or a generator? Are you a projector or a reflector? It's a very strange thing, human design. And actually, the guy who came up with it, he is called Ra-Uru-Hu, not his real name. His real name's Robert Allen Krakauer. But he was in Ibiza in the 80s. I swear, I think he had like a bad trip because apparently for 8 days and nights, he was transmitted this entire system of human design.
Right.
There are celebs who are into it. Angelina Jolie, she's a projector because apparently if you're a projector, you're strategic about your career, you're into humanitarian causes, that kind of thing. Tony Robbins, who's that guru, he's a manifesting generator. So, you know, there's all different types. You know, it's all about learning about yourself and it's all supposedly like actionable because you get self-awareness out of it. You're able to have better decision making. It can improve your relationships because once you know your type and the type of your partner, you have a bit of expectation management around that and you get career clarity. But it's also, like I said, it's about astrology. So you have to look up your chart. There's things to do with the I Ching. So I think it just sounds quite interesting, but I think you can go deep into that. Back to holistorexia, I honestly do not know how people have time for all of that because, you know, I was just talking to you about it and you're like, yep, all sounds good so far. And for me, in some ways, it's kind of like my dream life. You know, you do hours of self-care every day. You get all healthy and balanced and zen, but then you're not actually living your life.
It's just those 10 steps, those 10-second steps. They're just sucking up all that time. I'm a busy lady. I haven't got time to wait 10 seconds between steps.
But it's meant to relax you. It's actually probably meant to refocus you.
I can't imagine it doing that.
Well, you know, it's that old saying with meditation, do 15 minutes a day. And if you don't have enough time to do 15 minutes, that's when you should be doing an hour.
Oh, that's annoying.
It is annoying. I mean, I don't meditate at all, so who am I? I wouldn't have time to do all of this, but I do find it hard to kind of poo-poo this idea because I kind of get it when Susie says that this regime, it's what keeps her well. Although I also think it's a bit of a red flag because I did read that she also claims that if she misses one meditation session, it leaves her anxious, unfocused, and uncomfortable in her own skin for the rest of the week. So to me, this is not healthy. It's obsessional. And I think that's exactly what holistorexia is. It's this obsession with holistic wellness that while it seems like on the surface it's quite beneficial, it can lead to people becoming, you know, overly reliant on wellness methods that are meant to help themselves. But they're doing that instead of maybe getting professional medical advice for whatever they think it is that needs to be fixed. Because often what they think needs to be fixed isn't actually a problem. And look, I'm guilty of this. I've Googled the shit out of every little symptom I've ever had. I go on Dr. Google, and it's never a good idea because no matter what symptom you put in, it always ends up as cancer. And it's not a healthy way to live. It's like you can go down a rabbit hole. Also, while I feel like this really kind of amazing personal self-care regime that this woman Susie is doing, it's great. It must also be fucking exhausting. I mean, mentally and physically, to have that much focus on yourself. And that's also not good for you because you're not out there living life. You're just very internal and very self-focused.
Yeah.
Apparently in 2016, psychologists started warning people about a rise in the younger generations suffering from something called orthorexia, which is an obsession with healthy eating that becomes so intense that it's unhealthy. It's things like cutting out too many food groups. And I have to say, I've done that too. You lived through it with me when, I went vegan to alleviate a gut health issue, which then led to a really scary B12 deficiency that saw me having to self-inject synthetic B12 for a year. And it was absolute shit.
Whereas I went paleo for about 3 or 4 years, and actually it was the healthiest time of my life.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting. Would you do it again?
I wouldn't. I don't want to eliminate food groups anymore, and I want to be more relaxed about food.
Yes.
But I have put on stacks of weight since I gave it up.
Are you doing it for health or?
All of the above.
Yeah, I guess. It's a tricky thing. But with orthorexia, the problem is it's not just the food that people are focusing on. Once you focus on the food, it then becomes about other aspects of life. It manifests into other things like activities, from showering or having a bath to eating and sleeping. It becomes like, I need to do it in a specific way to achieve, I don't know, some preconceived level of optimum health.
Yeah, it seems a little bit OCD to me. It's ticking some boxes there. Exactly.
And look, I think if you go too far down this rabbit hole, psychologists say that it is exactly what you said, one step away from obsessive compulsive disorder. It's hard to get away from this stuff because obviously on Facebook, on Instagram, there are loads of like holistic health groups with, hundreds of thousands of members. And a lot of them are 20-something women, which apparently is the group most likely to jump on the trend of this. And obviously on Instagram, it's heaving with holistic health healers and coaches with millions of followers with all these posts for like how to use alternative medicine and how to heal yourself and using crystals and tarot, and it's all feeding into this industry, and it's very popular. There's books and podcasts and YouTube videos and all this stuff devoted to it all. And I remember actually during COVID when crystals were like having a real moment, so many people were just like crystal obsessed. They were like going crazy over their healing properties. And I mean, look, maybe they work, but I will say every time I buy a crystal to bring me more money and I put that crystal in my wallet, it doesn't work. I don't have more money. It doesn't happen.
I thought you were going to say it does work. I was all excited.
No. And the love one, I bought like a pink rose quartz and a love heart when I was single.
Put it under your pillow.
Well, did it bloody work? So the jury's out for me on whether crystals work. I don't actually mind because for me it's not ride or die, but there are, people who have become fixated on their routines, and holistorexia can affect people's lives in all different ways. There's a dietitian, she's British, called Gemma Williams, and she says there's a difference between being health conscious and being completely ruled by a compulsive need to be healthy in everything you do. A few years ago, Gemma enrolled in a holistic nutrition course out of interest, and remember, she's a trained dietitian, because she thought, I'm probably going to learn about maybe how food and emotions are linked. But she said it was completely not what she thought it was going to be. The teacher had really strange ideas. Like she was saying people should stay at least 4 meters away from microwaves to avoid being contaminated by the rays.
I never really stand in front of a microwave when it's on.
Oh, I always do.
You stand in front of them.
I don't really have one. Jen's got one, and I was standing there going, oh, bloody hell, hurry up. I thought these things were meant to be quick.
I have always avoided it. And back in the day before unleaded, I remember holding my breath when I crossed the road.
Oh, my God. Okay. Well,
a little bit obsessed.
It's what we were told.
That it's dangerous. But then I went on and smoked. What was that? Picked up the ciggies at 17.
It's because it looked cool.
Yeah.
It looked really cool. But, aside from like the microwave thing, like drinking booze is a no-no. And you definitely weren't allowed to drink booze in warm weather because it heats the body.
Okay.
And then there were all these other things in this course this lady did, which was all about you just have to drink obscure, expensive juices, buy expensive powders. And, she said there were people on the course that began to give up things that they'd always really enjoyed.
Aww.
Like, instead of going to the pub with their mates, they would go home and meditate and drink green tea. And not because they enjoyed it, but they thought that they would get unhealthy or sick if they didn't do these things.
Right.
And apparently the teacher was sort of trying to actively encourage this withdrawal from society, a bit culty.
That's not so good, yeah. Withdrawing from society, withdrawing from your community and people and engaging with people, that's not good.
No, not at all. The magical thinking comes into this because people who don't actually have a formally recognised condition from a doctor, they're self-diagnosing and they are then thinking, well, I can control this by drinking this certain drink or doing this chant or having an hour of meditation. And like you said earlier, it's the state of mind that is like obsessive compulsive. If I wipe that thing 10 times, I'll be okay. It's the same thing, but it's relating to health and wellness.
Exactly, yeah.
And they add more and more of these behaviours to their routine. And then it becomes, well, if I don't follow this routine, something bad's going to happen to me.
Yeah. What about those letters that you get and now they're emailing them around? If you don't copy this letter and send it to 10 different people on your list, you break the chain. Do you remember the chain letter?
I got them when I was a kid.
It'd be bad luck. It's all playing on psychology and good versus evil and bad things happening if you don't toe the line. I've got a massive problem with it. It's culty, like you said.
It is culty, but when I was a kid, I remember doing 2 of those chain letters. The first one was put $1 in this envelope and send it on,
right.
And then you end up with $100. Well, I did that and I got no dollars, right?
Yeah.
I lost $1 doing that, plus the price of a stamp. And then the next one was a similar idea, but it was with underpants.
Are you kidding?
I bought a pair of Kmart underpants, sent it off expecting to get 100.
Did you have to wear them first?
No, it wasn't like a...
To Japan, sending to Japan.
No, it wasn't, full of crusty juice.
Oh, God, Michelle.
Sorry, but it wasn't used. They were just new ones. I never got anything back, so I was always very disappointed. I also sent away for, I thought I was getting sea monkeys. Well, they were just
a bag of dust.
Freaking Lysol bullshit.
Right.
Yeah, it never worked. Like we talked about last week with the black salve.
The black salve.
Just because something is natural doesn't mean it's not harmless, right? And some doses of, like, high doses of herbal remedies, apparently like ginseng root, if you take too much, it can make you dizzy, it can give you nausea,
Yeah.
It can give you insomnia. I mean, there are lots of things that can go wrong.
You've got to watch it. Yeah. Same with zinc. It can be really dangerous.
Yes, exactly.
Don't eat too many oysters, people.
I didn't know this. Maybe you knew this, but apparently in the UK in 2017, there was so much concern from the NHS about poisoning from herbal remedies that the NHS banned doctors from prescribing homeopathy treatments.
I did know that. Yes, I remember.
And for anyone who doesn't know what homeopathy is, it's basically sugar pills that are so diluted.
They pass it over the thing.
They've had like plants and herbs and minerals that have been so diluted, it's basically like one molecule left.
It's about treating like with like, isn't it? Like we used to take Nux vomica when we were in India. and Nepal, myself and my friends, because my friend's mother was a homeopathy doctor and she gave us all these homeopathy pills, and one was called Nux.
Did they work?
Yes, it did.
That's the thing. People say it's all placebo, but many years ago was into homeopathy, and I actually did think it worked for me, but it's now banned. Doctors can't prescribe this stuff.
But you can go to a homeopathy expert, just not through the NHS.
No. Experts are now worried that many holistorexics are using things like homeopathy when they're seriously ill instead of real medicine. But there's this one woman that they talked about. Her name's Sophie Bradshaw. She was 26-year-old marketing executive from York who in 2017 had like really bad irritable bowel syndrome. So she went to a homeopath, and she'd always been interested in kind of natural health solutions. She hadn't got very far with her GP, so she thought, okay, I'll try something different. Now, I will say that like doctors, you get good doctors, you get bad doctors. I think you get good homeopaths and bad homeopaths. I think this one sounds quite shit. This practitioner told Sophie her symptoms were due to a parasite in her gut, exactly what happened to me. Then she was given homeopathic herbs to take in the morning, all these powders, then probiotics. She had a strict diet, which excluded yeast, sugar, wheat, and dairy.
Oh, God.
Which was apparently meant to reduce like swelling in the body and inflammation. And Sophie also read that taking black cumin seeds would help. So she added that as well to her regimen. And she said pretty soon she was obsessive about her gut health. She just was focused on this parasite. So she stopped eating food that she was told would be bad for her, which meant she was no longer going out for dinner. She wasn't eating with family and friends. But also she couldn't concentrate at work because these herbs made her really nauseous.
Oh, God.
She then became obsessed about the skincare she was using because she didn't want to ruin this treatment she was giving herself. And within 3 months, she was massively underweight. She couldn't work anymore. She had gut problems and she couldn't focus. She thought, well, I'm doing everything right. Why isn't my gut getting better? So she went back to her GP for help because she thought, well, you know, I'm losing a bit of confidence in this homeopath. Her doctor freaked out at how frail and skinny she was. And then she realized what I'm doing is not normal. Like I've cut out everything. She was so far down the line with it, her weight was just dropping and dropping and dropping to the point where her heart health was compromised.
Yeah.
And she had massive nutritional deficiencies. She went to a hospital for 7 weeks while they stabilized her body weight and monitored her organs.
Oh, my God.
Everything that she was told was bad for her is actually what made her healthy again. All those foods, all those things. And they said she never had a parasite. And she said she felt brainwashed. Basically, the best remedy for her gut was just eating regularly and just living like a normal person without stressing about pills and powders. So, Geordie, I think the upshot here is, ultimately, I think it's about what we were all told by our parents. Everything in moderation.
I agree with that. And what Michael Pollan says as well, eat food, not too much, and something else he said. I can't remember what it was.
Back to the idea of magic, there's hardly ever a magic pill or a magic regime that is going to cure you. And no amount of magical thinking will cure your cancer or your IBS. You know, the whole thing here is just be careful. You know, enjoy life. Eat the good food. Have the glass of wine.
Yeah.
Don't do what I did, which is go vegan and then ruin your B12 for a year and have to bloody inject yourself. Just believe in your own body's ability to heal itself. And, you know, I say all of this, but just last week, I got totally sucked into a product I'd never even heard of called Shilajit. I went thinking I was going to buy some CBD oil, which I've never had, and ended up with this Shilajit. It's like minerals from, you know, the Himalayas. It's this black kind of tar-like substance you put in hot water. I don't know if it's doing anything or not.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm a holorexic.
You're holocurious.
Yes, great word. That's what I am. And I give things a go, but
You do.
I need to be careful. We all do.
Just don't go hard.
Don't go hard, people. Don't go hard.
Absolutely. Oh, thanks, Michelle, for that, because that is quite intriguing to know that it's a thing, because it's for me. I know a lot of people. I've always known all my life a lot of people who have been quite holistically inclined, and I am inclined to always get second opinions, which are more of a natural alternative. Like I said before, I have been known to exclude entire food groups.
Me too.
For health, but I won't anymore.
Me either.
Let's not do that anymore.
And avoid the black salve.
Do not use that shit or anything that looks like it, but except for, what's it called? The nincompoop shit?
Shilajit.
Oh, Shilajit, yes. Which we'll find out if that works shortly. Stay tuned, people.
I'm not very good at compliance. I take it and then I forget, and so I'm gonna really get on it and see if I feel any difference in my brain fog, and if people just stop making me irritable. I'll let you know.
She's cracking the shit, guys. Watch out. Don't approach. Approach with caution.
Crack the shits.
Well, thanks, Michelle. Listen, I'm going to let you get back to your family in Australia. And next week, Eavesdroppers will be back as usual. But in the meantime, wherever you are,
whatever you do,
just keep eavesdropping.
Eavesdropping. Eavesdropping. Dropping. Eavesdropping. Dropping. Eavesdropping. Eavesdropping. Dropping. Dropping.